Every minute, 300 hours of video are uploaded to the surface internet. 5 million Google searches happen. 200 million emails are sent. All of that activity taken together accounts for roughly 4% of what is actually online. The other 96% lives underneath. Most of it is mundane. A small fraction of it is not. What follows is a guided descent through the layers of the internet, beginning at the surface you know, and ending at the bottom you cannot reach. The surface web. The internet you use every day, indexed by Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, linkable, searchable, public. At this layer you have the giants Google, YouTube, Facebook, Wikipedia, Amazon, X, TikTok, Reddit. These platforms are funnels. Their job is to compress global attention into a few hundred pixels and sell what bleeds through to advertisers. But even at this surface tier, the strange things are already present. You can find them without ever leaving the indexed web. Consider the Dead Malls subreddit. Tens of thousands of people post photographs of empty American shopping centers, abandoned food courts, escalators frozen in mid-step, an entire microculture devoted to documenting the economic skeleton of the country. Consider liminal spaces. Photographs of empty hotel hallways, empty playgrounds, empty back rooms. Places that exist to be passed through but are documented while no one is passing. This aesthetic has a name, it has a vocabulary, it has a fan base in the millions, and it is entirely surface web. You can find it from your phone in 30 seconds. Other surface tier curiosities, the TimeCube website still archived, the Mandela Effect community, the internet's running catalog of unsolved mysteries, the Tom and Shud case, the Solder Children, the lead masks of Bentham Hill. These are conversation starters. The water level entries on the iceberg, famous, well-trafficked, easy to enter. If you are a normal internet user, this is where your map ends. What follows is everything below. Tier 2, the deep web. First, a definition, because almost no one uses this term correctly. The deep web is not criminal. The deep web is simply the portion of the internet that is not indexed by search engines. Your online banking dashboard is deep web. Your private Gmail inbox is deep web. Hospital patient records, corporate intranets, academic journal paywalls, library archives, government tax filing systems. All deep web, all mundane. But within the deep web, there are zones that are not mundane. Forgotten databases that someone left exposed, archived FTP servers from the 1990 seconds, still running on a forgotten machine in a university basement, personal homepages of dead webmasters that nobody has taken down. One legendary deep web zone is the unindexed academic underbelly. Sci-Hub mirrors, LibGen archives, Russian-hosted libraries containing every academic paper ever published, scraped without permission, free to anyone who knows the URL. Tens of millions of papers. The entire output of paywalled science, gathered in defiance of publishing law. Another zone, forgotten GeoCities mirrors. When Yahoo killed GeoCities in 2009, a volunteer group called the Archive Team scrambled to save as much of it as possible. They preserved roughly 650,000 personal home pages. Most of those pages belong to people who are dead or who long ago forgot they ever made them. The pages still exist, they still load, they are still indexed by no one. Within the deep web, there are also private forums that require invites. Image boards behind passwords, Discord servers with thousands of members that have no public listing. You are not blocked from these, you simply do not know they exist. The deep web is the iceberg's middle mass. It is enormous, it is mostly boring, but hidden within it are entire intellectual subcultures that the surface web has never touched. Tier 3, the dark web. Where deep web is unindexed, dark web is deliberately hidden behind anonymization. To enter the dark web, you need a specific tool. The most famous is Tor, originally developed by the United States Naval Research Laboratory, now maintained as an open source project. Tor routes your traffic through 3 random encrypted relays around the world before it exits to its destination. Each relay only knows the relay before it and the relay after it. No single party knows the full route. That is what gives the dark web its anonymity. Onion sites end in .onion, not .com. They are not reachable from a normal browser, they do not appear in normal search, they have no DNS, they are addressed by a long cryptographic string of letters and numbers. What lives on the dark web? First, the mundane, mirrors of news sites that are blocked in censorship regimes. The New York Times runs an Onion site, so does the BBC, so does Facebook, so do most major whistleblowing platforms, SecuriDrop, Global Leaks. The dark web is the only way a journalist in a closed society can communicate with the outside world without being identified. Second, the markets. The dark web's reputation in popular culture is dominated by darknet markets, successors to the Silk Road, which was seized by the FBI in 2013. Today, despite a decade of takedowns, markets still operate. They sell drugs, fraudulent documents, stolen credit cards, hacking services. They use cryptocurrency for payments and escrow. Most of them are scams. A meaningful fraction are stings run by law enforcement. Third, the forums. Russian language carding forums where stolen credit card data is bought, and sold hacker forums where zero-day exploits are auctioned. Political forums of every extreme. The dark web is where ideas that would be deplatformed on the surface web go to persist. One famous dark web destination was a chess server. Just a chess server, no reason it had to be hidden. Someone built it on Tor purely because they could. People played anonymously, hundreds of games a day, against opponents they would never identify. At this tier, the iceberg starts to feel less like a metaphor and more like a place. Things go down from here. Tier 4 below the public dark web, there is what some researchers call the hidden index layer. These are zones of the internet that exist on the dark web, but are not listed in any Onion search engine, are not linked from any forum, and require knowing exact addresses passed by word of mouth. Within this tier sits one of the most famous artifacts of internet folklore, the Mariana's Web, named after the deepest trench in the ocean. In the early 2010 seconds, an infographic circulated on image boards claiming to map the iceberg of the internet. Mariana's Web was depicted at the bottom, supposedly a hidden zone accessible only with quantum computing and closed-shell systems. Almost certainly, Mariana's Web in that exact form does not exist. The infographic was probably a creative writing exercise that spread because it was compelling. But the fact that the infographic spread is itself a phenomenon. It reflected a real intuition that the internet contains nested layers of access, and that the deepest layers are guarded by something beyond the reach of normal users. What is real at this tier? First, private Tor sites with no listing anywhere. You either know the 56-character address or you do not. Many of these are simple file shares between small groups of people. Some are coordination boards for hacking collectives. A small number are far worse. Second, IP, the Invisible Internet Project. An alternative anonymity network with its own addressing scheme, its own protocols, separate from Tor. Much smaller, much weirder. IP sites are called EP sites. The community is dominated by file sharing, privacy advocacy, and a long tail of personal projects from anonymous developers in countries where Tor traffic is monitored. Third, Freenet, now called Hyphenet. A peer-to-peer network where content is broken into encrypted chunks and distributed across every participating computer. Once content is uploaded to Freenet, even the uploader cannot delete it. Material on Freenet persists as long as anyone is requesting it. That permanence is the point and the curse. Fourth, and harder to characterize, private file shares using protocols nobody outside the community uses, ZeroNet, RetroShare, Tox networks. These are not famous, they are not large. They are operated by small communities who chose a tool obscure enough that the wrong people would never find their way in. You can spend years living inside this tier without ever encountering the surface web. Again, some people do. Tier 5. This is where the iceberg begins to be something the internet does not enjoy discussing. Cursed archives. The term is a folk label, not a technical one. It refers to the corners of the internet, dark and deep and surface, where collected material exists that should arguably not exist, or that exists despite repeated efforts to erase it. The LiveLeak archive. LiveLeak operated from 2006 to 2021 as the destination for violent video that mainstream platforms refused to host. Combat footage, executions, accidents, deaths in custody. When it shut down, mirrors immediately sprang up. The footage did not disappear, it migrated. Most of the material on LiveLeak that is still circulating now lives on small untracked sites in Eastern Europe and Asia. The Tor mirror chains of 4chan's worst boards. When threads on those boards get deleted on the surface, archivers grab them and post them to Onion mirrors. The mirrors are passed link to link, never indexed. What is preserved is not always information. Sometimes it is gore, sometimes harassment campaigns, sometimes coordinated hoaxes, material that the platform itself did not want kept. The exit scammed marketplace archives. When a darknet market collapses, either from law enforcement seizure or a sudden disappearance by its administrators with everyone's Bitcoin, some users archive everything they can before it goes offline. Vendor pages, customer reviews, transaction histories. These archives circulate in collector communities partly for research, partly because some people simply collect. The shock site, Dead Pool. In the 2000s, certain URLs became internet folklore for hosting disturbing imagery. Most of them are gone now, but their content has been mirrored, repackaged, and re-uploaded under different names for 2 decades. The content is essentially indestructible. The hosting moves, the material remains. The cult tape archives. Multiple researchers have spent years compiling the audio and video output of fringe religious movements. The Heaven's Gate webcasts, the Jonestown Death Tape, the People's Temple newsletters, the Order of the Solar Temple's internal recordings. Not all of this material is suppressed, but the complete archives, with full audio and unedited transcripts, mostly live on Onion sites maintained by independent historians and obsessives. The line between archive and curse blurs at this tier. Material is preserved because someone believed it should be preserved. Whether they were right is rarely litigated. Tier 6. The operative layer. This is the tier of the internet that is doing things, not hosting things. Not pages, not archives. Real-time infrastructure built for operations that prefer not to be observed. Command and control servers. Every piece of meaningful malware, every botnet, every banking Trojan, every state-sponsored implant needs to phone home. The servers it phones are command and control nodes, often called C2 infrastructure. These nodes are designed to be invisible. They use domain generation algorithms to rotate addresses daily. They tunnel through legitimate services. They hide in compromised consumer routers. At any given moment, there are tens of thousands of active C2 servers running. Most are tracked by no one outside the security industry. Pre-staged exploit chains. State-aligned offensive cyber groups, the ones referred to in industry as apps, advanced persistent threats, maintain pre-positioned infrastructure inside target networks for years. The intrusions happened so long ago that the original incident is forgotten. The access remains dormant. Some of this access is in critical infrastructure, power grids, water treatment, telecommunications. Lawful intercept infrastructure. Every major telecom in every major country has a backdoor interface for law enforcement and intelligence agencies to monitor traffic with a warrant. The interfaces exist by law. They are usually called lawful intercept gateways. These interfaces themselves have multiple times been compromised. The most famous example is the 2004 Athens affair, in which a still unknown party intercepted the phones of the Greek Prime Minister and 100 other senior officials by hijacking the lawful intercept system in Vodafone Greece. Then there are the private intelligence platforms. Palantir's Gotham, NSO's Pegasus, Sandvine's Deep Packet, inspection appliances. These are not exotic. They are commercial products. Many countries operate them. Many corporations operate them. Their existence is the reason that the layer beneath this one even exists. At this depth, the iceberg's distinction between web and infrastructure dissolves. You are no longer reading pages. You are looking at the wiring underneath every page you have ever read. Tier 7. The bottom of the iceberg. At the bottom of every iceberg infographic, the labels become speculative. The famous diagrams place things here that may or may not exist: quantum computing access portals, closed shell systems, government black sites with their own private intranets. What we can say for certain: there are air-gapped networks that have no physical connection to the public internet at all. The classified networks of the United States Department of Defense, CIPRNet, JADEWIX, and ASANET are air-gapped, separately cabled, with their own routers, their own DNS, their own everything. They are by some definitions an internet. They are not the internet. What is suspected but unconfirmed? Other governments operate similar networks. The Russian Federation reportedly maintains a separate ministerial intranet called RSNet. China's military maintains AIR. Gapped Systems, North Korea, operates Kwangyong, an entirely domestic intranet with no connection to anything outside the country. These are real. They are not on any iceberg chart you have ever seen, because the chart makers do not have access to them. What sits below verifiable reality, in the territory of true folklore. The closed shell system. A term that has circulated on the internet for 15 years without anyone producing direct evidence of what it is. In the original iceberg memes, it referred to a layer of the internet accessible only by quantum computers, where supposed elite hackers maintain a parallel network beyond all surveillance. Almost certainly fiction, but the persistence of the term across thousands of forums and a decade of repetition is itself a kind of artifact. A folk belief about what must exist even if it does not. At the absolute bottom of the chart, some versions show a single skull or a single eye or a single word. The Primarch system, Cicada 3301's true headquarters. The dead internet hypothesis. These are not destinations. They are the limits of the map, the places where the iceberg makers admit that what is below is no longer known. One artifact at this depth that is real, Cicada 3301. In 2012, 2013, and 2014, an anonymous group calling itself Cicada posted intricate cryptographic puzzles on the internet. The puzzles led through layers of cipher, steganography, dead drop physical locations, ancient texts. Those who solved them were contacted privately and disappeared from the public puzzle thread. Cicada has never been identified. No solver has ever publicly spoken about what was on the other side. The puzzle stopped, the mystery did not. The internet you use every day is a thin sheet of ice over a body of water that goes deeper than any single person has mapped. At the surface, you have your social feeds, your inboxes, your search results. Beneath the surface, you have the deep web of unindexed information that the search engines never reached. Beneath that, the dark web deliberately hidden behind anonymization. Beneath that, the hidden indexes that not even the dark web search tools know about. And beneath all of it, the operative layer and the unmapped bottom, where the iceberg makers stop drawing because they no longer know what to draw. Most of the people you know will live their entire lives on the top 4% of this iceberg. A small number have walked down to the deeper layers for legitimate reasons, for curious reasons, for darker reasons. A very few have spent their lives building the layers below. The waterline is a choice. What you choose to see and what you choose to leave beneath.